Have you ever been watching someone live and felt something was wrong, but couldn't do anything to help them? What would you do if you saw someone in danger through your screen, knowing they couldn't hear your warnings, couldn't see your frantic messages fast enough to save themselves? On Christmas Eve 2023, 1,432 people experienced exactly that nightmare. They watched a woman wrap presents, laugh about holiday traditions, talk about her plans for Christmas morning, completely unaware that in less than an hour, she would vanish from her locked home while they watched helplessly through their screens. They saw something move behind her. They heard sounds that didn't belong. They screamed warnings into their keyboards that arrived seconds too late. And at exactly 12:14 a.m., while Christmas lights still blinked cheerfully in the background, the screen froze mid-motion and she was gone. Her name was Sarah Miles, and what happened during those 44 minutes of live stream footage has never been explained. Not by police, not by technical experts, not by anyone. This is the Christmas Eve case file. And I need to warn you, nothing about this story makes sense. Before we go any further, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Because what allegedly happened to Sarah Miles will change the way you think about who might be watching when you go live, and what can happen when the line between digital life and real danger disappears completely. Sarah Miles was 30 years old, living alone in a small rented house on the outskirts of Millfield, Ohio. A town so quiet that most people have never heard of it unless they grew up there. Population 463, the kind of place where everyone knows their neighbors, where nothing exciting ever happens, where the biggest news is usually about the high school football team. Sarah had moved there 2 years earlier from Columbus after a difficult breakup left her wanting space from the city, from the memories, from everything that reminded her of the life she'd been building with someone who was no longer there. She worked remotely as a graphic designer, spending her days creating logos and website layouts for clients she'd never meet in person. The work paid her bills, but barely. And like so many people trying to make ends meet, Sarah had been looking for ways to earn a little extra money, especially during the expensive holiday season. That's how she stumbled into content creation. Not with dreams of becoming famous or building some massive following, but simply because she'd read an article about people making side income through live streaming. She liked crafts, had always been good with her hands, enjoyed decorating for holidays. So in October 2023, she created a small YouTube channel called Cozy Crafts with Sarah and started doing occasional live streams where she'd work on holiday decorations, wrap presents, talk about budget-friendly ways to make your home feel magical during the season. Her audience was tiny at first, maybe 20 or 30 people dropping in and out, mostly other crafters who enjoyed the relaxing atmosphere of watching someone create things, while soft music played in the background. Sarah wasn't trying to perform or be someone she wasn't. She just turned on her camera, sat at her kitchen table, and worked while chatting casually with whoever showed up. It was peaceful, simple, exactly what she needed after years of chaos. But in the weeks leading up to Christmas, Sarah's small corner of the internet started to feel less peaceful. Her best friend Jessica, who lived 40 minutes away in Athens, told investigators later that Sarah had been acting strange since early December. She called Jessica late at night, her voice tense and worried, saying she kept seeing someone outside her house, a man standing near the edge of her property line at dusk, just watching. When she'd look again, he'd be gone. Jessica asked if she'd called the police, and Sarah said she had, twice actually, but both times when officers drove by, they found nothing. No footprints, no tire tracks, no evidence anyone had been there at all. The police told her it was probably just a neighbor walking their dog, or maybe a deer creating shadows. Rural areas play tricks on your eyes at night, they said. But Sarah knew what she'd seen. She started keeping her curtains closed even during the day, started checking her locks multiple times before bed, started feeling like prey in her own home. On December 10th, Sarah posted something on her small community tab that only her few hundred subscribers would see. Has anyone else been feeling watched lately? I keep seeing someone near my driveway at night. Probably nothing, but it's making me uneasy. A few people responded with concerned emojis and suggestions to install cameras or get a dog. One person made a joke about it being Santa checking his list early. Sarah never responded to any of the comments. 5 days later, December 15th, she posted again, called the police about the man outside. They drove by but didn't see anyone. Am I losing it? This time, more people responded, the tone shifting from lighthearted to genuinely worried. People urged her to stay with a friend, to get a security system, to trust her instincts. One commenter said something that feels haunting now. Better to be paranoid and safe than trusting and sorry. Again, Sarah never replied. When Jessica spoke to Sarah on December 23rd, the day before the live stream that would be her last, Sarah seemed almost manic with nervous energy. She talked fast, jumped between topics, kept circling back to the same worry. What if I'm not imagining it? What if someone really is watching me? Jessica tried to calm her down, suggested maybe Sarah should come stay at her place for Christmas. But Sarah refused. She had plans for a live stream on Christmas Eve, she said. A special late-night rapping session, because she knew a lot of her viewers would be up late getting ready for Christmas morning. She didn't want to disappoint them. Besides, she told Jessica, I'm probably just being paranoid. The police have been by multiple times and found nothing. I need to stop letting my anxiety control my life. Jessica said she had a bad feeling when she hung up the phone that night, a sense of dread she couldn't shake. But she told herself Sarah was right. It was probably nothing. She wishes now that she'd driven to Millfield that night and dragged her friend somewhere safe. But you can't rewind time. You can't unmake the choices that lead to disaster. Christmas Eve arrived cold and clear. Sarah spent the day alone, doing normal holiday things. She baked cookies. She wrapped a few last-minute gifts for Jessica's kids. She watched Christmas movies while drinking hot chocolate. Around 10:30 p.m., she set up her camera on the kitchen table, adjusted the angle so viewers would see her workspace and the Christmas tree she decorated in the corner with its lights blinking red and green and gold. She titled the live stream Late Night Rapping with Me, added a Christmas tree emoji, and scheduled it to start at 11:30 p.m. In the thumbnail, she was smiling, wearing a cozy red sweater, looking exactly like someone about to spend a peaceful evening doing wholesome holiday activities. Nothing about the image suggested that in less than an hour, something impossible would begin to unfold. The live stream started right on schedule. Sarah's face filled the screen, cheerful and relaxed, greeting the viewers who were already trickling in. Hey everyone, Merry Christmas Eve! Thanks for joining me tonight. The chat started scrolling with greetings and Christmas wishes. What nobody realized yet, including Sarah herself, was that this stream would attract far more viewers than she'd ever had before. Within 10 minutes, over 300 people were watching. By 11:45, that number had climbed past 800. And by midnight, when things started to go wrong, 1,432 people had their eyes on Sarah Miles. For the first few minutes, everything was normal. Sarah chatted about her day, about the cookies she'd burned slightly, but they still tasted good, about how she was excited to see Jessica's kids open their presents tomorrow. She pulled out wrapping paper, scissors, tape, a pile of gifts still in their Amazon boxes. She started wrapping, her hands moving with practiced ease while she talked, occasionally glancing at the chat to read comments aloud and respond. Everything felt cozy, safe, exactly what her viewers had come for. Viewers didn't notice this until later, but at 11:36 p.m., exactly 6 minutes into the stream, there was a sound. A loud thump, muffled but distinct, coming from somewhere off camera. Sarah paused mid-sentence, her scissors hovering over wrapping paper. She looked to her left, toward what investigators would later determine was the direction of her living room. The chat immediately reacted. Did you hear that? What was that noise? Sarah turned back to the camera and laughed, but it sounded forced, nervous. Probably the wind. Old house, you know? Lots of creaks and bumps. She went back to rapping, but her hands were moving faster now, less smoothly. She kept glancing to her left every few seconds, her smile not quite reaching her eyes anymore. 13 minutes later, at 11:49 p.m., something happened that would be analyzed frame by frame thousands of times in the weeks after Sarah disappeared. A shadow moved behind her. Not the vague, maybe something, maybe nothing kind of shadow. A clear, distinct silhouette of a person moving from left to right across the doorway visible in the background. It was only there for maybe 2 seconds, but it was unmistakable. human-shaped, moving deliberately. The chat absolutely exploded. Who's that? Sarah, turn around. There's someone behind you. Oh my God, someone's in her house. Sarah saw the comments and turned around quickly, her chair scraping against the floor. The camera caught her face in profile, confused and frightened. Hello? She called out. Is someone there? Silence. She stared at the empty doorway for several long seconds while the chat continued to panic. Then she turned back to face the camera, her face pale now, hands trembling slightly. There's nobody here, she said, but her voice was shaky. You guys are scaring me. It was probably just my shadow or something from the Christmas tree lights. She tried to laugh again, but it came out wrong, brittle, and unconvincing. The viewers weren't buying it. They'd seen what they'd seen. Arguments broke out in the chat. Some people insisted it was clearly a person, that Sarah needed to call the police immediately. Others said it was probably nothing, a trick of the camera, viewers being overdramatic. A few suggested it might be staged, that Sarah was creating drama for views. But most people were genuinely frightened for her, begging her to check her doors, to get out of the house, to take their warning seriously. Sarah read some of the comments and shook her head. I promise you, there's no one here. I live alone. All my doors are locked. But even as she said it, she didn't sound convinced. She kept glancing over her shoulder, kept pausing to listen, kept wrapping presents with hands that wouldn't stay steady. This is where the case completely changes. At exactly 12:02 a.m., officially Christmas morning now, the audio picked up something that shouldn't have been possible. Whispering. Faint, barely audible under the Christmas music, but definitely there if you turned your volume up. The words weren't clear, too muffled to make out, but it was distinctly a human voice. Not Sarah's voice. Someone else. Someone close to the microphone. Sarah stopped talking mid-sentence, her whole body going rigid. Did someone just, she started to say, then stopped. Her eyes were wide, darting around the room. The audio crackled, heavy static washing over the stream for 3 or 4 seconds. When the static cleared, Sarah was standing up. Her breathing was audible, quick and shallow. I'm just going to check the door, she said to the camera. Be right back. She walked out of frame. The camera kept recording. Empty chair. Half-wrapped presents scattered across the table. Christmas tree lights blinking their cheerful rhythm in the background, completely oblivious to the terror building in real time. The chat had become a wall of panic. Don't go alone. Call the police. Get out of there. 15 seconds passed. Viewers could hear nothing except the quiet instrumental music still playing. Then, faintly, the sound of a door opening. Sarah's voice, muffled by distance. Hello? Is someone there? More silence. Then her footsteps coming back, faster than they'd left. She reappeared on camera and sat down, but she didn't pick up the scissors or the wrapping paper. She just sat there, staring at something off camera, her face completely drained of color. Someone knocked, she said quietly. But when I looked through the window, no one was there. Here's the strange part. Investigators later pulled footage from neighbors' security cameras. The timestamps showed that between 12:02 a.m. and 12:10 a.m., the period when Sarah claimed someone knocked on her door, absolutely no one approached her property. No cars drove by. No people walked past. No movement at all except a cat crossing the road 3 houses down. So who knocked? Or did Sarah imagine it? Or was someone already inside, knocking from the inside to terrify her? Police refused to comment on this detail, but one investigator later said off the record that the lack of footage made no sense unless whoever was there knew exactly where the cameras were and how to avoid them. Unless they'd been watching for weeks, learning the angles, finding the blind spots, unless this had been planned very carefully. If you've watched to this extent, comment I'm still here. Let's see who's brave enough to keep going with this story. And if you believe people should feel safe in their own homes, hit subscribe, don't let fear win. The final minutes of Sarah Miles's live stream have been analyzed by thousands of people, by amateur detectives and professional forensic experts, by everyone trying to understand what they're seeing because it doesn't make logical sense. At 12:13 a.m., 1 minute before everything ended, Sarah was still sitting at her table, no longer pretending to wrap presents, just sitting there responding to the increasingly frantic chat with shaky reassurances that she was fine, that she'd call the police if anything else happened, that maybe she should end the stream early. Then the camera shook. Not a gentle bump, a hard shake, like someone grabbed the tripod or the table itself and jerked it violently. The image tilted, then stabilized. Sarah's face was frozen in shock, her eyes locked on something beyond the camera's view. Then, a voice. Male, low, barely above a whisper but close enough to the microphone that every word was clear. "Don't open it." Sarah's whole body went rigid. The chat erupted in all caps, chaos. "Who was that?" "Call 911 now. Sarah Roon." Her lips moved and she whispered, so quietly that viewers had to turn their volume to maximum to hear it. "Please leave me alone." Her breathing became ragged, rapid, the sound of someone trying not to hyperventilate. Her hands gripped the edge of the table so hard her knuckles went white. She was staring at something off camera, something that had her completely paralyzed with terror. Then, at exactly 12:14 a.m., the frame froze. Sarah caught mid-motion, turning her head to look behind her, her face a mask of pure fear, mouth slightly open like she was about to scream. The Christmas tree lights were still blinking in the background. You could see them changing colors in a pattern that continued even though Sarah herself was frozen, locked in that single moment. The stream timer kept running. 12 hours, 14 minutes, and 3 seconds. 12 hours, 14 minutes, and 4 seconds. 12 hours, 14 minutes, and 5 seconds. Viewers were screaming into the chat, asking if anyone else was seeing this, asking someone to please call the police in Millfield, Ohio, because Sarah Miles was in danger. Some people claimed that during those frozen minutes, they could hear sounds, footsteps, heavy, deliberate footsteps getting closer. Some claimed they heard Sarah's voice, screaming or crying, though the audio meters showed no sound registering. Investigators later said all of that was impossible, that people's brains were filling in details that weren't there. But thousands of people swear they experienced something during those 3 frozen minutes that can't be explained. At 12:17 a.m., the stream ended abruptly. No goodbye, no fade out, just black. Viewers were left staring at a black screen, their hearts pounding, their minds racing, many of them already trying to find emergency numbers for Millfield, Ohio police. Within 30 minutes, Millfield police received 47 separate calls about Sarah Miles. Within an hour, officers were at her door. What police found when they entered Sarah's house has never been fully disclosed to the public, but what is known is this. The front door was unlocked, which Sarah's friends said was unusual because she'd been so paranoid about locking everything. The house was empty. Every room checked, every closet opened. No signs of forced entry, no broken windows, no evidence of a struggle. Sarah's phone was on the kitchen counter, her laptop was closed. The camera setup had been taken down, tripod folded up and leaned against the wall, camera and microphone nowhere to be found. The Christmas tree was still lit, still blinking. The half-wrapped presents were still on the table exactly where Sarah had left them. Everything looked staged, arranged, like someone had carefully cleaned up. But Sarah herself was gone. Her car was in the driveway, her keys were on the hook, her coat was still hanging in the closet, her wallet was in her purse. Everything she would need to leave was still there, but she wasn't. Police found Sarah's phone and checked her messages. The last text had been sent at 11:58 p.m., right before she checked the door during the stream. It was sent to Jessica. Just 3 words. "He's here again." Jessica never saw that message until the next morning, Christmas morning, when she woke up to 17 missed calls and a voicemail from Millfield police asking her to call back immediately regarding her friend Sarah Miles. The case exploded online. Within 24 hours, clips from Sarah's final live stream had been viewed millions of times. People isolated the audio, claimed they could hear words in the static. People enhanced the video, claimed they could see a figure standing in the shadows. The chat logs from Sarah's final stream were leaked online. Some viewers claimed they'd seen more than what appeared on the video. One person said they distinctly saw a face in the reflection of the window behind Sarah. Another said the Christmas tree lights stopped blinking in a normal pattern right before the stream froze. Paranormal investigators jumped on these claims. Skeptics dismissed all of it as pattern-seeking behavior, people desperate to find meaning in tragedy. Police refused to classify the case as an abduction because there was no evidence anyone else had been in the house. They refused to classify it as a voluntary disappearance because Sarah had taken nothing with her. They refused to confirm or deny whether they considered it a homicide because there was no body, no blood, no physical evidence. The case existed in a strange limbo, officially listed as a missing person investigation, but treated by many as something far more disturbing. If you're still here, comment "Justice for Sarah," because she deserves answers. And if you can't stand the idea of someone being taken from their own home on Christmas Eve while people watched and couldn't help, make sure you're subscribed. Don't let her story fade into nothing. Here's what doesn't make sense, what has kept this case alive in the true crime community. The timeline is impossible. Sarah's doorbell camera allegedly captured someone approaching her front door at 12:03 a.m. The footage showed a figure, dark clothing, face obscured, moving up her front steps. The timestamp was clear, but when police pulled footage from every security camera in the neighborhood, there was nothing. No cars, no people, no one walking toward her property. So how did someone get to her door? How did they approach without appearing on a single camera? Did they cut through the woods behind her property, avoiding all the street cameras? Did they know exactly where to step to avoid motion sensors? Or was the doorbell footage itself somehow faked? And then there's the police body camera footage from the officers who responded at 1:43 a.m. The footage is mostly standard, showing officers moving room to room, calling out Sarah's name. But there's a gap. From 1:46 a.m. to 1:49 a.m., 3 full minutes, the body camera shows nothing but a black screen. The audio continues, you can hear the officers talking, but there's no video. The official explanation was a technical malfunction, battery connection being loose, but people who've analyzed the footage claim you can hear something else during those missing 3 minutes. A woman's voice, distant and distorted, saying words that sound like help or please, or maybe just sounds that terrified listeners interpreted as words. The case went cold within a month. Police had pursued every lead and come up empty. Sarah Miles had vanished from a locked house, on camera, while over 1,000 people watched, and no one could explain how or why or where she went. Her family held a memorial service in February, though they refused to call it a funeral because they wouldn't accept that Sarah was dead without proof. Jessica spoke at the service, crying as she told stories about her best friend. She should have taken care of Sarah better, she said. She should have driven to Millfield on Christmas Eve when that text came through. The guilt was eating her alive. Sarah's small YouTube channel remained online, frozen at 842 subscribers, the last video still showing that thumbnail of her smiling in her red sweater. Christmas tree blinking behind her. The video itself was removed by YouTube within 48 hours, cited for violating community guidelines. People speculated that police had requested its removal, or that YouTube didn't want the liability of hosting what might be footage of a crime. Whatever the reason, the original stream was gone, accessible only to law enforcement and whatever viewers had downloaded it before it vanished. Those bootleg copies circulated on darker corners of the internet, watched by people trying to solve the mystery. 3 weeks after Sarah vanished, her YouTube account went active again. Not a new video posted, but the account itself showed activity. At 12:14 a.m. on January 14th, exactly 1 month after the stream that ended with her disappearance, at the exact time the frame froze on Christmas Eve, someone logged into Sarah's account from an IP address that couldn't be traced beyond somewhere in Ohio. That someone watched Sarah's old videos, the ones from before Christmas. They watched them in chronological order, all the way through, not skipping. The activity lasted 17 minutes, ending as mysteriously as it began, and it never happened again. YouTube confirmed to investigators that the login was real, not a glitch or a hack, that someone had entered Sarah's correct password. But whose device? Sarah's laptop and phone were both in police custody. So who logged in? Where were they accessing the internet from? And why did they choose that specific time, 12:14 a.m.? Jessica received a message 2 months after Sarah disappeared. It came through Instagram, from an account with no profile picture and no posts, created that same day and deleted within hours. The message said, "She's not where you think. She's not who you remember. Stop looking." Jessica immediately contacted police, gave them screenshots. Investigators traced it as far as they could, which wasn't far. The phrase, "she's not who you remember," particularly troubled investigators because it suggested either that something had changed Sarah fundamentally or that the person writing knew Sarah better than her friends did. But what secret? Sarah's life had been thoroughly investigated. She was exactly who she appeared to be. There was no hidden darkness, no secret life, nothing that would explain why someone would target her. The case remains officially unsolved. Sarah Miles is still listed as a missing person, though active investigation slowed when every lead had been exhausted. Her house eventually went back on the rental market and a new family lives there now. Jessica still posts on Sarah's case anniversary every year, sharing photos and memories and begging anyone with information to come forward. Sarah's brother Marcus started a podcast about her disappearance, going over the evidence again and again, hoping publicity will shake something loose. But so far, nothing. Just theories and speculation and endless arguments. So what really happened to Sarah Miles? Did someone who'd been watching her for weeks finally make their move on Christmas Eve when they knew she'd be alone? Did they somehow bypass every camera, leave no trace? Is she still alive somewhere? Or did she die that night and her body is hidden somewhere that hasn't been searched? Or is there a third option, that Sarah orchestrated her own disappearance so perfectly that everyone fell for it, and she's out there somewhere living a different life? The truth is, we may never know. Some cases don't get solved. Some people who vanish never come home. Some mysteries remain mysteries not because the answers don't exist, but because they're hidden in places we don't know how to look. What would you have done if you'd been watching that night? Would you have called the police immediately when you saw the shadow? Would you have believed Sarah when she said someone knocked even though no one was there? It's easy to say we would have done something different, that we would have saved her somehow. But the truth is, most of us would have done exactly what those 1,432 viewers did. We would have typed warnings that arrived too late. We would have felt that creeping dread, but convinced ourselves it was probably fine. We would have watched, helpless and horrified, and then spent the rest of our lives wondering if there was something we could have done differently. Sarah Miles was 30 years old. She liked crafts and holiday decorating. She worked hard to make ends meet. She was lonely but hopeful. She was scared but trying to be brave. She went live on Christmas Eve to wrap presents and talk to strangers because she didn't want to be alone. Because human connection, even digital connection, felt better than sitting in silence. And something happened to her. Something that 1,432 people witnessed but couldn't prevent. Something that left behind more questions than answers. She deserves to be remembered as more than a mystery, more than a cautionary tale. She deserves to be remembered as a person who mattered, who had people who loved her, who wanted to live and find joy in small things like twinkling Christmas lights and perfectly wrapped presents. And she deserves justice. Whether that justice looks like finding who took her, or finding where she is, or simply finding the truth about what happened in those final minutes, she deserves for people to keep looking, keep asking questions, keep refusing to let her story fade. So if you're still here, if you've listened to this entire story and you feel angry or sad or frustrated that there are no easy answers, then comment justice for Sarah right now. Let her family know that people still care. Let whoever took her know that people are still watching, still investigating, still hoping that someday the truth will come out. Christmas Eve should be about family and joy and hope. But for Sarah's family, Christmas Eve will forever be the night they lost her. For Jessica, it will forever be the night she ignored a text that said, "He's here again." For the 1,432 people who watched that stream, Christmas Eve will forever be associated with the sick feeling of watching something terrible unfold and being powerless to stop it. And for Sarah herself, wherever she is now, whatever happened to her after 12:17 a.m., Christmas Eve is the last night she was seen alive. Did Sarah walk away from her life that night, or did someone turn Christmas Eve into her last night alive? Tell me, what do you think happened at 12:14 a.m.? Drop your theory in the comments. Share this video with people who care about unsolved cases, who believe that the truth matters, who think that Sarah Miles deserves better than to be forgotten. Subscribe if you want to see more stories like this, more cases that don't have easy answers, more mysteries that will make you think and question. And most importantly, if you ever feel like someone is watching you, if you ever get that sense that something is wrong, even if you can't quite explain why, trust that feeling. Don't dismiss it as paranoia. Don't do what Sarah did and stay in a situation that feels dangerous. Your life is worth more than content. Your safety is worth more than views. Sarah Miles checked into her own home on Christmas Eve. She went live, expecting nothing more than a quiet evening wrapping presents. But at 12:14 a.m., while Christmas lights blinked and music played softly, Sarah disappeared. And 3 years later, we still don't know what happened. We still don't know where she is. We just know that she's gone, and that her absence has left a hole in the lives of everyone who knew her and everyone who watched her final moments. This is the Christmas Eve case file. This is the story of Sarah Miles. This is what happens when the line between digital life and real danger disappears. And this is why, if you're still here, you need to remember her name. Sarah Miles. 30 years old, Millfield, Ohio. Last seen December 24th, 2023 at 12:14 a.m. Still missing, still waiting for answers, still deserving of justice. If you believe she deserves justice, if you believe her family deserves closure, then make sure you're subscribed to this channel. We tell the stories that need to be told. We refuse to let mysteries like Sarah's disappear, and we need you to help us keep these stories alive, to keep the public aware that there are people still missing, still waiting to be found, still deserving of the time and attention it takes to bring them home or at least bring their families the truth. Sarah Miles went live on Christmas Eve. She never came back. And until we know what happened to her, her story isn't over. It's just waiting for the next chapter, where everything finally makes sense, where the truth finally comes to light. That's what we owe her. So stay safe out there, trust your instincts, and never forget that sometimes the scariest stories are the ones that are true.